Well, let's see.
Yeah, no. Ooh, papa, da. One more. Yeah, but you la, be flea, bop. Ooh, papa, da. Yeah, but you la, be flea, bop. Ooh, papa, da. Yeah, but you la, be flea, bop. Ooh, papa, da. Yeah, but you la, be flea, bop. Ooh, papa, da.
Mr. Gillespie. Mr. Carter. Now, if you and your cats can put down something hard like that, we might admit you to the Heavenly Society of Musicians and Composers.
Hold tight, Barky, old boy. You ain't heard nothing yet.
Before bebop, there weren't many musicians that understood the piano, chords. But in bebop, they had to learn how to do that.
It is not an easy music to learn, I'll tell you that, first of all. And especially it became a challenge for me because to play that instrument, which is very, very mechanical, and try to make it sound like something similar to the way they played.
You had to really be able to have some kind of technical mastery of the instrument that you played, or you couldn't play. You couldn't even play the themes that they played, let alone try to improvise.
Kids get really old enough to become proficient and start playing, they realize, wow, that kind of playing, that bebop, even though it's 40 years old now, it's the most challenging, the most difficult of all jazz to play.
Because you got to think all the time. Classical musicians, the music is there. They play that, period. Nothing, no added notes, no nothing. They play just what's down there. I think jazz requires a better conception of music in general, and soloists and context. you ever hear of Secara? Socaras, Alberto Secara, flautist extraordinaire. He was Secaras. He's in New York now. I mean, he's still in New York, but he's Cuban. But he played with the Cuban National Symphony Orchestra before he came to New York. And then he had the relief band at the Cotton Club with Cab Calloway when I was with Cab. And then he was in the Savoy, really had a band up there, so Latins. And boy, this guy can play the flute like heavenly. Really, really, really heavenly. But I was with Secaras and the Savoy, and playing Latin. I guess that's, come to think of it, maybe that's where my first brush with Latin music came from, I guess. But it hasn't left me yet. I'm still. You know, there's a dearth of big bands now, the bands to play with. I don't know what's going to happen to musicians. It's a terrible tragedy. There are no big bands for the guys to get experience. There are no clubs where a guy can get. If a musician is poor and but want to get with his fellow musician and learn and play and pick up and
1, 2, 3, 4. I don't hear ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba-da. I don't hear that. Sound like y'all's da-da-ba, something like that. Oh, don't be ba-da-ba-da. I want that. I want to hear that. Well, be ba-da-ba-da. Yeah. Good. Try it again. 1, 2, 1, 2.
It takes a whole lot, 50 years or something like that, to learn to phrase differently than they did in the previous dispensation. So the music of the day owes a lot to bebop because they phrase like that. They do new things in it, but they're still phrasing like that. Feet going up here. The feet, patting the feet. That's something that's so funny. But I look at that feet and I get messed up myself. The feet patting is something because you can tell when your foot Yeah, well, when your foot gets out of the right, that means you out up here too, because the foot goes with the head. The foot goes with the head, you know. Like we say, and I guess the foot going like this, like they're playing a drum or something. I think it might be a good idea. You see, I don't think that's good. Come to think of it, but you can always keep good. Boom, bing, 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 boom, 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 bing, bing, boom, bing, boom, 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 boom. Like you say, boom, bing, 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 boom. You know what I'm thinking about? To my time, I'm talking about. I'm filling up the bar, and then if I want to hit anywhere, I got the correct hit. You know, instead of relying on 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, I'm thinking about 1, 1 or 2, so therefore, anytime I hit, it is correct. I might miss the note, yes, but not miss the time. So it's necessary. You're eating. Right.
You can throw that joint down.
Remember 1939 Diz?
Yeah, right.
When you made that record with blah, 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 blah.
Remember that night when you was standing outside of Birdland on 52nd Street, 1952? Remember that, what you did?
It was 9 o'clock at night.
9 o'clock at night.
I had my wife with
I
my
asked you if you had a light. I asked you if you had a light.
For me, Dizzy was a catalyst. You know, he would gather folks. He'd tell us about Oscar Pettiford. He'd tell us about Charlie Parker, because he was on the road as was Klute during those early days with big bands. So they traveled around the country.
One of the big things about the music was when all of us went with Earl Hines together. It was Billy Eckstine, Sarah Vaughan, Charlie Parker, Benny Green, Shadow Wilson. All of us went with Earl Hines. They were already there, but Charlie Parker and I came later. And it was some good times.
And that isn't you there, is it? Charlie playing tenor saxophone. Doesn't look like you.
It is, though. Yeah, that's me.
Does that look like Charlie? Was it more fun playing with the Hines band or the Eckstein band or the big band?
I think it was more fun playing with the Eckstein band.
The Eckstein band?
But the Hines band was much smoother.
The experience of working with Cab Calloway, Lucky Millender, Tiny Bradshaw, Earl Hines, who were great showmen, aside from being musicians. So I had that experience, so I think I could really use it.
First time I saw Dizzy was with the Billy Eckstine Band. I think it was 1944. And what happened was the kids in school would send the students in the band in to hear the stage shows, to listen to the music first to see whether or not it would be worthwhile to go and see the show. Well, we went in to hear the Billy Eckstine band and never came back out to let them know that they should go and listen to it, because the music was so powerful and so new and so dynamic that we forgot it. We just stayed and heard every show.
As Eckstein was the first bebop band, and we went out on the road with the band into the southern states and so forth, there wasn't, the people would just kind of look at us open-mouthed because they didn't know what the hell we were doing, And, but of course with Eckstein and with Sarah Vaughan, who was singing with the band, this kind of saved us because Eckstein was so very popular at that time. So the band was able to last for a while.
It was a transition period going on. It had gone from great, very golden age period big bands, Ellington, Basie, Benny Goodman, Minority Show, and so forth. That period, who primarily played for dancing. Dizzy's music was not for dancing; it was to listen to only.
Yeah, we were only thinking about music, but I danced it all the time. You can't dance. I'm dancing. Yeah, it was a pickup band, Billy Eckstine gave me music. Gave me music stands, microphones, because he'd already broken up his band now. So he asked me I said, I need some music. He said, take anything you want. So I took the music, and then we went on a tour down south. It was disastrous. They weren't ready for it.
And now maybe you figured Dizzy cut out, but no, indeed. Here comes the professor of Bebop now with his whole class of cats. Hey, Dizzy, come here, man. Dizzy, come on. What are you going to play for the customers now?
Dizzy Atmosphere.
Oh, it is that.
When we went to California, the club owner, didn't know what to do. He was very mystified. He'd never heard the music before in his life. And it was the first time he'd ever heard it, and he didn't know whether he was going to make any money or whether whether people would like it. And he was really kind of frustrated over the whole thing for the first week,
A lot of the established swing era jazz players came out of the service, came out of the army, and didn't know what to think. It was different. And the established jazz community got very scared, very frightened. They put it down. All the critics put them down. They had to eat their words.
Because it was true music. It wasn't anything that would complicate the mind. It was very understandable from the beginning.
What was happening, I was in the Air Force in 1943. I was drafted. I went into the Air Force. I was 18. And being in the Air Force, it was segregated then. So they had an unauthorized black band. In other words, they had this side of the fort was black, and then all the other part was white, you see. So while we were there, Dizzy came down with his big band. I think Max Roach was playing drums, and I think Sonny Stitt was with him or something like that, one of the tenor players. And he said, well, I'm going to disband. I'm going to form another band when I get back to New York. He said, so if you're discharged, he said, come by and try it for the band. So we says, okay. So we were discharged, me, Dave Burns, Joe, and we went back home. I lived in New Jersey, in Newark. Dave was in Perth Amboy. And later on, we went and tried out for the band. Walter Fuller was the musical director. Walter Fuller looked at me and said, you don't play loud enough to play, because I was nervous, all these different
He was so nervous he couldn't even tune up. And Walter Fuller really, what do you call it when you, what's the word for that? The way that he spoke intimidated him, and Moody was also nervous like this. I said, oh, cool, that's all right.
So y'all just said, come back when you learn how to play. So he took Dave, and they didn't take me. So I went back to Newark, and I started gigging in Lloyd Manor, making $7 a night. Boy, that was money.
Big money.
Big money, $7 a night, man. And I came home one day, and my mother was ironing clothes, and she was smiling. I said, what's that? And she said, look under there. And I looked under some sheet that she had ironed, and there was a telegram, and it said, you start with us tonight. You know, so I joined the band at the Spotlight. I immediately went over, and I was in the band. And when I sat down there, that's who I saw. Monk, Baggs, the Ray Brown, you know, Kenny Clark, all these cats, boy, and standing at the bar with Coleman Hawkins, Don Jesus, you know, Lester Young. I was in awe, you know. I said, damn, you know. But that was my beginning of bebop with Diz, you know. Yep.
The piano player at that time, Dizzy's man, was Monk. Monk was playing piano. Monk left the band, I think about May or June of '46, and Dizzy asked me if I'd come play piano, so I did. And so I had a little decision to make come fall, September, when it's time to go back to school, whether to go back to school or stay with Dizzy. I was learning much more with Dizzy, things that I needed to know, wanted to know, so I stayed there and stayed for 2 years.
John Lewis was in the army with me in France. And we had promised each other that we would meet when we were demobilized. And he being from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and me from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, there's quite a span between us. And he decided to come to New York to go to Columbia University, which he did. And we both joined Dizzy's band together, along with Milt Jackson and Ray Brown. That was the original modern jazz quartet. We were all members of Dizzy Gillespie's big band.
Most of the time, we spent a lot of time playing between times when the brass and the saxophones played in Dizzy's band, because that music was very difficult that they had to play, and they needed long rest periods, so this rhythm section with Bible harp, so to speak, played.
Kind of changed the color of the music to bring it down in quartet form from a big band, which John worked tirelessly to do. And I think he succeeded immensely.
Why would we have to go all the way over to Japan or come to Europe, for example, which is where we came first? I came to Europe before I ever went to Japan in 1956, before we were recognized back in America. They didn't recognize this group in America before we came to Europe in 1956. Don't you think that's strange? This music that comes from America was created in America. Simple.
Well, it wasn't that well received in the United States, but we made a trip in 1947 to Scandinavia, Sweden and Denmark. And there, Dizzy had a wonderful reception for his music. The public probably was better educated musically in Europe than at that time in the United States.
I like Europe not much. There might be a possibility my wife and I might move over here for a little while, maybe several years or something. We've been talking about it for 25 years. We've been married 30 years, my wife Lorraine. And we've been talking about it for 25 years. We haven't moved yet. So I guess we'll get over here sometime.
That tumultuous ovation is out of sight. You know. I know nobody don't know what I'm saying, but I'm saying it anyway, and I feel it, so it doesn't matter. That was a composition. That was a composition of mine called Con Alma, which is a Spanish means something. Spanish. You get the idea. It doesn't matter because I feel home. I really feel at home here. And I might move up here soon, too. It's awful cold here. Here's another composition of mine that you might, it's a ballad that was inspired by our late leader, the late Dr. Martin Luther King. And I composed this little piece. We hope you like it. It's called The Brother K.
It's a known phenomenon in the United States that in order for a black man to succeed in anything, he has to do it 10 times better in order to be recognized, to make anything of himself. You know?
And growing up in Philadelphia, we had a certain pride in the fact that Duke Ellington had played for England in England by command of the Royal Highness, Things like that, instead of baseball players were points to be proud of in the black community. This is before the acceptance of athletes. The music asserted its black contribution to the world, and the art form which was being created, jazz, So it's very difficult for me to forget about that.
Everything that the black musicians had been playing, sooner or later, the white musicians would get it and play it And of course, they're getting paid 100 times more than we were, you know.
Something else to that. Johnny Griffin is sitting here now, healthy, but he's paid his dues, and when I say this, he's gonna smile and say, yeah, the jazz musician used to get on a bus and you travel. You don't get any sleep, you don't get any food. We used to be down south. You couldn't go in a hotel because they wouldn't let us go because we were black. Sorry to say it, but in those days, that's the way it was. We had to come up like that. We couldn't get any sleep. When you could get some sleep, it was in a little rinky-dinky place. They would mess with your money, and the people who were getting the money were the agents. The agents were getting the money in New York, and they were the ones doing it. And they called themselves, now there were some that were trying to do halfway right, but they would be getting money under the table. In other words, the jazz musician has been screwed over ever since there's been the word jazz, you see? But now, the jazz musician is getting a little more aware of things, so he formed his own publishing company. They're trying to find new ways to screw him.
They have something now where you sign a contract that says you agree to send us, say, 2 albums a year. Albums to be decided by the record company. They can tell you to go back in the studio and make another one. They run it. You know Stumpy and Stumpy, the two dancers. We were at a party for my wife. I left my horn on a stand. The other guy pushed the other guy, and he fell backwards, and just on the horn bent. I played it, and I liked the sound from that angle. So I had one made like that. I've been playing it ever since. I've been playing that horn now for at least 35 years. My whole trumpet section had these trumpets with Quincy, Joe Gordon, Bama.
I wrote a song long ago for Jan Gillespie, and it's been very good to him, and everything is cool. It was kind of good to me, because I get the money, and that's where it's bow boo boo, and it's called Ooh Pop A Dot. Bing bing biggity biggity.
You know Babs Gonzalez? Babs used to be mine. You call somebody when they go, when a guy goes out into the world and he sees, in sports, say a guy plays good soccer, young guy plays good soccer, he goes out and see this guy and he brings him in and say, hey man, you should get this guy. Scout. That's what Babs was, scout. Babs was a musical scout. That's how I got Charlie Preston in the band. Called me up in my house one time. He said, I'm over here in Newark, and there's a drummer over here is a bitch. I said, well, bring him to rehearsal. Brought him to rehearsal the next day, and he got the job. We have arrangements with my big band. When I go out on the road, we play the same arrangements of the 40s. And nobody knows it. And it just gets a groove, you know.
I've been thinking another thing I've been thinking in terms of that you might be interested. You see, I'm for unity now, in all its aspects, and everything, unity in everything. I don't care what it is, a unity. I'm for it, and for jazz, and for music, and for quintets, and for orchestra. See, now, and each one has its point. Each one has this little thing. It's like a painting. Each colors, orange, red, pink, blue, green, all these colors that make up this one masterpiece. If it is a masterpiece, and then make it up can make up a faux pas, make up an atrocity. It can do that too, but. If it's perfect, if the pieces fit perfectly, the colors fit perfectly, and it has form and things like that, it can work out to be a masterpiece. So an idea I had in mind, I want to stress rhythm. See, I can take rhythm. I can take this band and use all of the instruments as percussion. The trumpets make them percussive. It is percussive, and the trombones and the saxophone, and then the rhythm brings it. The rhythm moves it in. See.
I expect in 15 years or so, the music of the Western Hemisphere will be united. The music of Cuba, Brazil, West Indies, and the United States will be one music. But all of the characteristics of all of the music come in, so it'll be a mishmash. That's going to be some music when it comes really comes in. So I guess 15 more years I'll be how old? 86? 86? Hell, I'll be playing when I'm 86 years old. What are you talking about? And strong too.
Gathered around to see what he was trying to prove. But and it was to plainly see that it was dragging them out of the groove. At last the leader turned around and said, "Listen, Pops, you had better stop. Oh, there you go, you did it again. You just beat when you should have bopped."